All right, guys, it's a little late. So at Larson Auto Works, you saw my boy Warren. He welded on the bungs for me. Came home. Some of the paint got a little bit, the crinkle got a little bit burnt. Luckily, I had cherry blossom paint. Does wonders. Looks freaking beautiful. It's almost done drying. Then I'm going to be using this type of Teflon tape, guys, the yellow or gold Teflon tape. It's good for anything to do with gas, oil. So I'm going to be wrapping the threads off the sensors with Teflon tape. And remember, the threads are tapered, so it's going to be a little more tight than usual once you start tightening it down. So a little bit of Teflon tape. I'm going to tighten this bad boy down, and then I'll see you guys when I'm installing the gauge. What's happening, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's doing well. So from the intro, you got it. We're doing some gauge installs today. These will be the final two pieces in the Hulk's evolution of gauges. So altogether, I will have 7 custom gauges plus my access port, and you know, many more treats to come, but we're not going to disclose that. But anyway, my boy Jason over at Glowshift sent me over a dual intake temperature gauge and a volt gauge. I definitely like monitoring my voltage on my battery because I do run a lot of accessories. That's why I have a Optima yellow top, and I definitely want to see my intake temperatures, especially when I'm doing pulls and stuff like that. And this gauge enables you to monitor your hot side from the turbo and the cold side going back into the intake, which I definitely like to see because I monitor other things on my access port. As you see here, you see my intake piping. You have, when you're doing the intake, the dual intake temperature gauge, you have an option of either using taps to tap into your intercooler, which can be easy, but for some of you who you don't even know what a tap is, and it's gonna be sketchy for you to do it. So Glowshift, you have the option of getting weld-in bungs or the taps. So I chose the bungs that my boy Warren over at Larson did for me yesterday. He welded the bungs nicely, and I repainted my pipes last night. And I used Teflon tape. There's a yellow Teflon tape that when you're using oil, it's a very strong Teflon tape. It's not the white stuff. This is yellow. You definitely want to get that. And I rather the weld-on bung because I know it's going to be perfectly sealed, no leaks, and I know I'll get a more accurate reading than tapping into the intercooler and possibly getting some type of boost leak or something like that, which you definitely don't want. So I'll show you know, I'll put some clips up with that stuff here. Also, I have a custom gauge mount. I'll be mounting this in the cubby right below my air conditioning controls. So I'm going to have a nice custom location for the gauges. I wanted to do this in two parts, but I might just do it in one because the volt gauge is pretty easy. The volt gauge is just pretty much a wire harness that hooks up into the ground, a permanent connection, and a switched connection, which I'll show you in a little bit later on with these 2 fuses, and actually added fuses. And that's really it. With the dual intake temperature gauge, you get 10 color series gauges that shift in and out. Both of them, you have your 9-foot wire harnesses. These harnesses, these get attached to the bungs and then ran through the firewall. And then you have your connection that goes from the back of the gauge and taps into the added fuses. That's the wire cluster, just like this voltmeter right here. So I'll be running both of these gauges off of these 2 added fuses. I've shown you that in multiple videos many times. So I can't wait. What I love about this gauge, it has 2 readings here. So one reading the hot side and one reading the cold side. I can't wait for that. So let's get on with this install. Oh, I almost forgot. Things that you're gonna need. I'm probably not gonna mount this with screws. I'm probably gonna use 3M tape to mount it up top. You're gonna need possibly extra wire, stripper, taps, possibly heat shrink if you want to solder, extra fuses. You're definitely gonna need this wire hanger because I just ran the wires through my firewall. Those 9-foot extensions, definitely ran those down there through the firewall, so just be aware of that. And as we go along in the video, anything else I come across, I'll just let you know. All right, guys, so as I showed you, you needed your adder fuses. Now, what I did was I took the liberty of connecting these adder fuses up, putting the fuses onto the adder fuses, So what I'm gonna be looking for, obviously you can see I have a lot of adder fuses in there. So if you've never seen one of my videos before, I'm gonna throw them up top so you can click on them and check them out for other in-depth gauge installs from Glowshift. We're gonna be looking for 2 types of fuses. You need as I spoke about before, you need a permanent connection, which is a connection that has 12 volts running to it from the battery when the ignition is off. And you're looking for a switch connection that only has 12 volts running to it when you switch the ignition on. So this is your panel right here. Check it out. Let's see if it could focus. Sometimes it's like weird, but you see this. So right here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be tapping into, see this bottom right here, this one right here, it says the 15 amp F dot fog down to the bottom. That one I'm going to show you, that should be a permanent connection. That should have 12 volts running to it when the ignition is off. And then there is an empty slot right here. That's slot number 19. That's an empty slot. I'm gonna put 2 7.5 amp fuses in there, and that should only work when the ignition is on. So let's test it out real quick. So the bottom fuse, obviously you have your tester, hook it up to the battery. If it's long enough, make sure you check your grounds. So this is the one down to the bottom that I wanted to be a permanent connection. The permanent connection that keeps on the gauges, it keeps your settings, your color settings and whatnot. So now once I tap onto this, my tester should light up. Bam. So that connection is live when the car is off. Now let's check the one in the empty slot real quick. Nothing. Check the top. Now remember, check the 2 leads because you don't know the power flow. So you check the top, touch the metal, and then you check the bottom. Nothing. Let's turn the ignition on real quick. Check the top, check the bottom. There we go. There we go. So we got 12 volts running here when you turn the ignition on. Get it? And that's all there is to it. So this adder fuse right here is going to be going to number 19. This bottom one with the 15 amp fuse, that's going to go to the permanent connection. Now remember, the fuse, so this is a 15 amp fuse. That F fog fuse is 15 amps. The fuse that you're putting, so matter of fact, this is in the wrong spot. So the fuse that you're putting, this line is going to be running to the gauge. So this fuse right here cannot be higher than the fuse on the panel. Do you understand? So if this is a 15 amp fuse, if this is a 15 amp fuse, a number 25 or 29, the F fog, you cannot put like a 20 amp fuse here. You're asking for trouble. You're gonna blow shit out if there was a power surge. You get what I'm saying? So the fuse that you're using for your gauges or whatever else you're using cannot be higher than the fuse that you're tapping into. All right? All right, guys, so the stuff under the hood is done, so we're back inside. Now, those are both gauges right there. That's the harness for the volt gauge. You don't have to run anything through the firewall, as I said. That's just gonna get tapped into a switched permanent and a ground. This is the cluster right here for the intake temperature gauge. So obviously, guys, the black is the ground, the yellow The yellow is the permanent source right here, so that's going to be connecting to the adder fuse with the blue fuses on it, right? The red is the switched connection. That's going to get tapped into the adder fuse with the brown or 7.5 amp fuses. The orange I never use. The orange, if you tap that into a headlight source, so like a fuse, what'll happen is when your ambient running lights come on, like if it gets dark or at night, or you know, you go into your garage or something like that, the gauges automatically dim. I don't use that, so don't worry about the orange wire. If you want, you can. It's all good. Now what you want to do is you want to take some 18 gauge wire and just lengthen these, even though if they might, they'll probably be able to reach, but just lengthen them. So you're going to need obviously your stripper, some solder, heat shrink and whatnot, and that's what I'm about to do right now. All right, so all the wires are joined, which is perfect. And the cool thing is, since both of these gauges are running off the same adder fuse, by the way, you can run about 5 to 6 gauges off of one adder fuse because the power draw is very, very low, which is a good thing as per Glowshift. So what I'll be doing is, so both of these reds, I'm gonna join them up. That is gonna go into the adder fuse, into the switch connection. I'm gonna join both of the yellows. That's gonna go into the permanent, and both of these blacks are gonna get tapped into a ground. And that's it. All right, peeps, so now we're on the inside. The gauge is gonna be mounted right here. A Glowshift, they sent me this like just a dual gauge, like a cluster. You can mount it with screws over here. I'm gonna use 3M tape, and just in case I need to take it off, you know, an emergency or something like that. And I'm gonna I really don't use this portion anyway. And all you gotta do is this mat right here, it comes out. And what I did was I took my hole saw, I put a hole right in the corner right there, and I'm just gonna feed the wires down right here and then run them right to the fuse box right there. And that's the long and short of it. So let me just run the wires real quick, and then we'll tap into the fuse. All right, guys, so you see me wire up everything, grounded it. Let's see if this thing has power. Yes, we got action. It's the voltmeter right there. That's the intake temp sensor right here. Oh, that's perfect. So now, yes, color shift. That's what I'm talking about. So all I have to do now is hook this part up. I'm gonna be putting it right up here. Look what I did. I reused the mat, just put a tiny little hole in there. So everything is super, super neat down to the bottom. You can't see anything. Let's go. All right, fam, the install is complete. I actually took out the, I took it out from up here, and I put it here instead. I put it on slot number 23 right here. This is slot number 23. That's for the switch connection. So it actually comes on with all the other gauges. All the other gauges come on as soon as on the first button push, like so way you can you know, play your music and stuff like that. And this slot up there, that's slot number 19 where I had it, it would only come on like on the second button push, which turns on like the entire ignition. So on slot number 23, it coincides with everything. This is how it looks, finished product. That's how the gauge mount looks. It actually is pretty good. I just used 3M tape, so even if it breaks down or whatever, I could always put more of it. Guys, also, you would have to take some type of, I use frog tape with all my gauges, wrap it around. With this mount, you have to do quite a number of revolutions to make it seat in there properly. And as I told you before, if you look back there, it literally looks like no hole. All you see is just a little bit of wire right there. So later on, I'll put some wire loom back there so you can't see anything, but it looks like very, very seamless. I put a lot of wire loom up here. There's a lot of wires, man. So, you know, I mean, this car is wild. But anyway, let's test it out. Yep, comes on with the rest of the gauges. And I just got to set, since I had it unplugged, I just got to go back in and set it to color shift. There you go. Time to start it up. Then we gotta take him for a drive. So hold on. All right, guys, one thing I forgot to mention is you can change the colors here, obviously lower and higher temperatures. So you can put the top in blue. So now it says here, you know, press the color cycle button to go between the 10 colors. To set obviously different colors on the upper and the lower display, press the color change buttons until the preferred color is set on the lower display. So the lower display is the hot, so that's the red. Then hold the color changing button until the upper display starts to flash. I'm gonna hold that down on red. There we go. And I'm gonna cycle through on what I want it to be. And we can have that as blue. Blah, blah, blah. And that's it. All you gotta do is whatever color you're satisfied with, when it's flashing, like you cycle through the colors on the blue when blue or green or whatever when it's flashing, and when you're happy, just let it flash and it'll stop, and now it'll permanently stay on that. So and that's it. So now, whoa, that's so cool. So now you can have it color shifting if you want it. Oh, that's awesome. So you can have this, you can cycle through the colors and just leave it like that if you want. See, it's all different colors. And now I got it color shifting. Oh, that's freaking dope. Now I got it, yo, that's dope. Got it color shifting, bottom and the top numbers. Awesome. Anyway, guys, again, like, subscribe, comment. Don't forget, tighten up your NPT bungs, make sure everything is good, double check your wiring, and I will talk to y'all soon. All right, guys, time to take this bad boy for a spin. The cold side of the intake is at the top. The hot side is at the bottom. Cold side is at 120 and drop it fast. Functioning pretty well. Voltmeter is holding at 14. It's functioning pretty well. Pretty freaking cool. Hopefully the camera can zoom in as much as possible. Hopefully. In the 90s now. The hot side is at about $140-ish, $145. Yeah, man, functioning great. Guys, definitely check out Glowshift. Use my name, Wicked Whips. And for a 10% discount, definitely like, subscribe, comment, and I will talk to y'all soon. Hopefully you guys learned something with the install. Don't be afraid, just do it.